Hi, I'm Joe Welinske, and I'm the program manager for the upcoming UX Writer Conference. And so we're excited about that. It's going to be June 9th and 10th, and it takes place everywhere and anywhere. It's online. So it should be an interesting opportunity to hear from a lot of experts in the UX writing area and meet our colleagues. And one of the fun things I get to do is talk to some of the speakers. And so right now I am chatting with Niklas Nordlof. Hello, Niklas. How are you?
Good, doing good.
Well, I'm normally in the Seattle area. I actually had to get on a plane, which was kind of strange, and so I'm not there right now. But where are you talking to us from?
I'm in San Francisco, so I'm over in the Dogpatch area for those folks who know San Francisco.
All right, good. And obviously, it's kind of a strange time, and so we can't really tell where you're at, but you have a nice background.
Yeah. I'm just saying the background is from right north of the Golden Gate Bridge, kind of the Marin area, a little bike ride I went on. So.
Very nice. All right. Well, maybe a good place to start would be for you to just talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up getting to where you're at today.
Yeah, so yeah, we had talked earlier. You mentioned that you teach at the University of Washington, and that's actually kind of how I started to get into the field. I studied technical communication at the University of Washington. Um, the department has since gone through a little rebrand. I think it's now the Human Centered Design and Engineering (HCDE).
Right.
And so, I'm originally from Seattle. And so I had a few jobs after college there, mostly doing things closer to technical writing, technical editing. And when I moved down to San Francisco, I started working for a small, like 15 or so person startup, just as the technical writer. But when you're working for a startup of that size, you end up doing everything. And as the person writing the help documentation and stuff, I quickly, I would notice little things with our in-product copy, and turns out that our one of our engineers was often writing that as he was coding things. He was Russian, didn't feel comfortable doing it in the first place, and I said, hey, I'll just take that off your plate. I'll do it, and that would also make my job easier when I'm writing the help docs. And eventually I found out that this was a field, and so a couple jobs later, I ended up here at Dropbox, where I've been for the last little over 3 years, just doing UX writing exclusively.
And how are things set up there? Do you work with a writing team, or do you embed with a certain product group? Or is there any certain way things are set up there?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because UX writing, or I've heard content design, content strategy, whatever the term you may use, seems to work a little differently at every company. At Dropbox, we are kind of our own little group within design, and then you could think of a UX writer as working kind of like horizontally, if you will, across a few different groups. And so, yeah, so me personally, I work across like 3 or 4 different groups, and over the last few years, that's kind of changed a bit which ones I work across. But all the UX writers report kind of centrally to like UX writing managers, versus say like product design managers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, and you're right. It does vary a lot from organization to organization, and so like with the types of things that you're involved with UX writing, how does that fit into the type of products that services Dropbox? I'm a subscriber in a couple of different ways. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. So where do we see your work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So And I think also another thing that I didn't touch on is I've had a role before this as a content strategist where I worked on like in product and help center. At Dropbox, our UX writing team is just focused on an easy way to think about it is like everything you see after you sign in to Dropbox. So kind of like the stuff before that. There's some gray area there sometimes, but generally the stuff before you sign in. Our other teams and the help center stuff is another team as well. But me personally, I have worked on our enterprise team. So a lot of content that I work on is shown to like Dropbox admins. So if you manage a Dropbox team, you've probably seen my work throughout the admin console or in emails you get. I also work on our sharing team. So basically everything after you click that share button. I've worked on our sync team. So a lot of the messages and fun error messages one of the things that I'll speak about in my talk is a team that we put together for a while to kind of really focus in on what we were calling like restorations, which is the experience of like getting files back after they're deleted or preventing that from happening in the first place if it wasn't intentional. So yeah, I've kind of worked throughout a broad range of the product in my time here.
Well, the topic that you have for the conference is titled "How We Name Dropbox Rewind." So give us a little preview of what's going on there.
Yeah. So this was a fun project that we worked on. Basically, we had kind of identified kind of like one major situation. So when folks delete a bunch of files from their computer, and this can happen in a lot of ways. For example, you could get, say if you're on a Dropbox business team, some person on your team or even you could get ransomware on your computer that infects all your files, including those ones in Dropbox, and then those files kind of sync to the cloud, and suddenly your team can't access files that are shared. So we wanted to kind of build a feature that can solve for that situation, or it doesn't have to be as extreme as ransomware. You could, someone new could join your team, they download Dropbox on their computer, and they're like, oh, what are all these extra files that I have downloaded? And maybe they don't realize they're shared, and they drag them all to the recycle bin or something, and suddenly your team doesn't have files you're looking for, and you just really need to get this back. So getting all these files back was an extremely intensive process by for our customer service team, especially when they're working with a business team where other people are like trying to restore the files themselves, or and the customer service team is trying to sort through, okay, what are the actual files that you want back, and trying to make sure you have the right version. So we wanted to build a tool that just allows people to do this themselves. So it's a little easier for people to use, and allows people to just get things back right in the moment. But in building that tool, we quickly kind of realized that this was going to be a premium feature, and it needs a name of some sort. We need a way to describe the verb that you're doing to do this action, and we needed a way to kind of describe the thing in general so that people would say, yeah, this is a thing that I want to pay for, like a premium feature at Dropbox to use. And at this time also at Dropbox, we didn't have any sort of official process in place for naming. I think this is probably true at a lot of companies. When you need to name a new feature, it's usually like some head marketing guy who's like, it's called a Bada Bing or something, and we're releasing this new Bada Bing, and that person just kind of names it on their own. But since this feature really originated in design and had a lot of user research behind it, we wanted to name it also with in mind, thinking about like the verb that you would use as you're clicking through it and just the entire flow and how we could help people feel comfortable as they're using the product. And so that's kind of just what my talk is about, just that naming process, the user research we went to, and talking with localization and also meeting with our marketing partners to also make sure that this is something that resonates with Dropbox, the brand.
Yeah, well, yeah, that should be really interesting. And when there's a feature named like that, it really is something that you can point to and that's visible, that people are able to, see some fruit of the labor that you're involved in.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it was good having a chance to chat with you about this, and we'll look forward to hearing you talk about Dropbox Rewind when we get together for the conference in just a few weeks.
Great. Thanks, Joe.